A very common problem that people are having when they have the top turtle position is actually controlling the turtle and basically staying connected with them. They get the turtle position and their opponent will either pull guard or their opponent will stand up or something along those lines. Or they might do like wrestling movements on them, like a switch or sit outs or so on and so forth. So what we're going to talk about in this video is different ideas and concepts of controlling the top turtle. I'm going to talk about controlling the turtle in different aspects. It may be all in this video, maybe in a separate video, but that's what the focus is going to be. So let's focus on when we have the side turtle positions. So we already established the fact that we got on the side of our opponent, all right? It's a completely different story getting to the top turtle position, right? So we already got there, and now we want to control our position. So Russ is down in the turtle position here. Now, the first thing is I want to make sure I always keep a connection with him. What I mean by keeping a connection is I want to have some sort of connection by his hips. The reason why I want to have some sort of connection by his hips is because he's not just going to sit here for pretty much the whole entire time in the turtle position and not do anything. The only time he might do that is if we're competing, he's up by a few points, there might be a minute left, so he might just hang out here and hope that the minute runs out and he wins, right? But more often than not, the person's going to be trying to escape this position or reverse the position on you so they can get you on the bottom. And usually for them to do that, they have to move in some way, shape, or form. I mean, if he doesn't do any movement, then nothing's going to happen, right? And for him to move, he needs to be able to have freedom of his hips, right? Whether he's going to, whether he's going to sit through and get his guard back here, or he might wrap around my arm here like this and then roll through. Or we might be here and he might feel like a loose connection and he might do a quick crawl forward here and then turn around in some way or something along those lines. He needs to have some sort of freedom or ability to move his hips to do any of those, right? If he doesn't have full freedom of his hips, it becomes much more harder for him to do those things. So that's the first thing. And this is going to be something that a lot of people possibly aren't even expecting, right? They're expecting me to talk about maybe seatbelt grips, getting arm control, and so on and so forth. But hip connection, when it comes to controlling the turtle, in my opinion, is very underrated. So let's say we go back, right? So now I have hip connection. I don't even have my knee inside, right? Having the knee inside is very, very common. But right now I don't have my knee inside, but I have some sort of hip connection on him, all right? Whether I have my hand underneath or I have I'm basically elbowing down on the other side of this hip. So now here, because I have this hip connection, which basically means my ribs and my hip is along his hip line, when he goes to sit to guard now, it's easy for me to follow him. Right? So it's much easier for me to follow him and basically stop him from getting his guard back. I'm basically a lot more steps to taking his back right now. I'm pretty much behind him. It's like we're not even playing turtle anymore. Now he has to defend the back. Or if I'm here like this and he does grab my arm, right, and I have a hip connection and he goes to roll through, it's so much harder for him to roll through because of the fact that I'm literally just grinding my hip into his hip. He went to do this like Peterson roll type of movement, but because I was connecting my hip to his hip, he lost a lot of his ability to do that. And I was doing pretty much nothing other than just putting some pressure into him. Let's say the third scenario when he goes to run away, right? So I'm here like this. He goes to run away. Look what he just did. He literally just took me with him. And I felt like I was doing nothing, right? Because I had some sort of hip connection with him. Now let me explain a little bit more about the hip connection. We're here, let's say Russ is facing this way. I'm taking my hip and I'm connecting it to his hip here. I also like to take my arm and just kind of like wrap it around the back of his hip as well. And I'm just, basically, also my near side leg is pushing against him as well. And I'm just kind of just chilling here. I'm relaxing, but I have active pressure on him. So I have this active pressure so I can feel what he's trying to do. By having hip connection, it makes him a little bit more predictable. I can feel what he's trying to do because more often than not, for him to complete a movement, his hips need to move first, right? It doesn't mean the movement can't start before his hips move, but for him to actually complete a successful movement, he has to move his hips, right? So if he goes to slowly do the movement where he's going to pull guard on me, right? When I keep this hip connection, go to pull guard on me, I can now follow his hips. See how I just followed his hips around? Now I'm behind him. I might end up, he might re-turtle, and I might end up turtle on the other side, right? And we just do the same exact thing. I might end up on turtle on the other side, but I kept control of him, or if you just sit through again, or I might end up behind him in some way, and I might be able to take his back. But the point is I kept some sort of hip connection. If we go back to this scenario where my hip is connected to him, I'm here like this, he wraps around my arm, right? And I go to feel him go to do like a Peterson roll, I just stay connected to him. All I'm doing is pushing my hips. This is the invisible jiu-jitsu stuff. It's the stuff that you really can't see. I'm taking my hip and driving it into his hip. Because what happens is it actually makes it harder for him to rotate because it's hard for his right hip to go upward. So when he goes to turn, it's very difficult. And so it's very difficult for him to do these things. If we turn back this way again, when it comes to the aspect of him trying to run away, and I'm just explaining some common things that can happen. When I go here and he goes to try to run away, he literally takes me with him, and then he opens up the ability for me now to get like good harness grips and so on and so forth. So that's the first thing. Like that's the first thing when it comes to keeping control that a lot of people miss. They do not focus on hip connection. Hip connection allows you to stop the reversals. Hip connection allows you to float with them, right? Floating is basically the concept of going with your opponent, right? So when, for example, the example when he went to go sit out and get his guard back, I was able to connect my hips with him and float with him. It was like I was a part of him, and I just basically went behind him. That's what the hip connection does. So this concept alone, just practicing it, brainstorming it with your training partners will help a very large amount of people. You know, I'm guilty of missing hip connection sometimes, right? In a live roll, there's many things that you should be doing that you don't do, right? And I'm completely guilty of it. I might roll with Russ or somebody else, get the turtle position, 100% know that I need hip connection, but my brain is so focused on finishing and doing all these different things that I lose the hip connection. Next thing you know, he's out. You know, like if I was here like this, and I didn't have hip connection, what I mean, I'm just kind of, there's like space here. I'm just kind of control. Yeah, now he can easily sit out. I felt, at no point did I feel like I was ready to stop him from sitting out there. And this also happens when somebody has a harness grip, right? Harness grip is super strong, right? So the harness grip is super strong. But if you have a harness grip and you don't have hip connection and your harness grip isn't very good, right? And you don't have good chest connection, he can still do the same exact thing. It's basically just it's a false sense of security. People think because they have the harness grip that they're going to keep control of the turtle position. That's not necessarily the case. So focus on hip connection because this is something that a lot of people miss. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Hopefully this helps you out, and I'll do the best I can to continue helping you. All right? Peace.